I'll do. I'll do.
Hi folks, welcome to the live stream. Glad you could join us and hope everyone is having a fantastic week so far. So today we're talking about the smart building startup ecosystem, investment and M&A, and what the data says. So whilst we're waiting for a few people to join, I'll just go through some of the subjects that I wanted to cover today. Number one, obviously just introduce the topic, what research we've done and what the scope of that research is. Number two, talk about what investment we saw in 2024. Number three, look at acquisitions in the market in 2024, what the numbers say there. And then some kind of predictions for 2025, but basically extrapolating out what we've learned from 2024 and what that might tell us about this year. Then finally, just some information on some of the research we did to look at Asian startups. And then finally, we can finish with Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments. You can type them in. I can't actually read them at the moment, but as we go along, I will take a look. So if there are comments you want to make, you want to add to the conversation, then great. Or if it's specific questions, then maybe we leave those to the end. We're also recording the session. So if you do want to share it with colleagues, it will be available for that. You can either check back on LinkedIn after the recording's finished. You should be able to find it there. Also, it's on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, search for the Smart Building series, then you'll find it up there after the session. Okay. Just to say as well, like if you want to stay in touch with what we're doing, we've got a full research program this year. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter or our LinkedIn page, that's a good way of staying in touch with what we're doing this year. Okay, so scope. So as part of this work, this is actually like the sixth time that we've conducted this study. So we've identified about 1,300 startups founded since 2013. Actually, our database of companies goes back to 2009, and that covers over 1,600 companies. But and we'll talk about what our definition of a startup is. But basically, that doesn't fit. Those companies founded before 2013 don't fit our definition, so they're not included in this data here. And actually, that database is available to enterprise subscribers of our research this year. Second here, management and operation phase of the smart commercial building space. So specifically, we're concerned with how commercial buildings are managed and operate, and the technology around that. So we're not covering, these numbers don't cover, for example, construction technology, and they don't cover certain aspects of property technology, prop tech. So for example, like leasing software or websites that list for listings, things like that. These are not included in our numbers. And then finally, our definition of a startup. So that is a private company that's, as I said, founded no earlier than 2013. So basically no older than 10 years. And it's focused on commercial and industrial buildings market. And also not a subsidiary or an acquisition of a larger company. And generally, of course, they've had some funding from either some institutional funding, venture capital, private equity. But, there are some companies that have also bootstrapped as well. They would be included in these numbers. So what does the landscape look like? So these are some of the numbers. In total, of those 1,300 firms, 460 have been acquired since 2013. That's about 35%. 74 of them are either closed or inactive. That's 6%. And 36 have either completed or planned some sort of IPO, including a SPAC, special purpose acquisition company. And also in those figures, there are some that have abandoned those SPAC as well. So that leaves about 751 active startups that fit that definition I gave you in the market, providing software and hardware and different types of technology services. So that's what the landscape looks like in at the moment. So in terms of investment, what did it look like? So funding from institutional investors like venture capital, private equity, and also corporate backers have reached about 6.9 billion in 2024, and that's actually the third highest value since 2015. It's only 2021 and 2022 that are higher than this year. And compared to last year, it's pretty favorable. It's roughly the same, a little bit bigger. So I think that by itself is a really good sign. That we're maintaining the market and ecosystem is maintaining a relatively high level of investment coming in that's supporting these startup companies. That funding was spread across 279 rounds, and that's a 17% increase on 2023. So there were also more rounds this in 2024 than 2023. In terms of how that's broken down by area, the US accounted for 99 of those funding rounds, so around, in terms of value, around 3 billion. In Europe, actually accounted for more rounds, 127 rounds, but in terms of value, less, around 2 billion, of which actually Germany was the biggest country by value in Europe, and with the UK second. There are actually more rounds in the UK, but less value. Yeah, then this slide here shows you how we segment the funding rounds by type of technology. So there are 27 different types of technology that we segment by. And I think one of the really interesting takeaways this year is that 50% of all funding rounds in 2024 were related to some sort of energy management technology in buildings. So that includes carbon reduction, energy savings, integration of solutions with renewable energy, and grid interactivity in buildings. So if you look here, for example, 21 funding rounds for building energy management solutions, 28 for building energy management hardware, 22 for energy efficiency and renewable energy, etc. And then really interestingly, of those 50%, 60% of that was raised by startups in Europe. And that compares really favorably with North America, which is almost double. So North America was 33% of that. So I'd say Europe has a fairly significant lead in energy management investment based on those numbers. And I think that does highlight Europe's attitude to cultivating, like a smart building landscape, which is aligned with sustainability and ESG. Why is that? I think one of the big drivers for that is energy insecurity. The war in Ukraine has really kind of laid bare Europe's energy security problems. And, I think to counteract that, we're seeing a lot of work being done at this level, investing in companies that are trying to improve our energy management and usage. And also we're seeing that at a regulatory level as well. So, for example, like European Union initiatives like Repower EU, they are supporting these companies and supporting initiatives to in terms of energy usage. So on that respect, I think it's really good. So the US, of course, doesn't have the same pressing needs around energy security. They're in that respect in a better situation to us here in Europe. But it will be interesting to see, what's going to happen now with the new administration. I don't think there is going to be a regulatory environment in place that is going to push more energy legislation. I think that's fairly clear. But we'll come on to a little bit about what I think is going to happen this year in a bit. So we can look now at kind of acquisitions in this space last year. There were in total 56 acquisitions, and that was sort of a mix of corporate buyers. I think they accounted for around 6 deals. Like in terms of also geographical area, as I've listed here, 33 of those were acquisitions of European startups, 21 were acquisitions of North American startups. I think we can, on the balance was startups in Asia. I'm sure we can read too much into those figures. There were more acquisitions in Europe, but the difference wasn't that great. So what could that mean for this year? Well, already in January, we've seen 16 acquisitions. So, if we are going to continue at that rate, then we'd be looking at well over 100 deals this year compared to 56, right? A massive difference. But I don't expect that level to be maintained throughout the year. Although clearly January indicates that there are going to be more deals done in 2025. So some of the ones that were already been done, that were completed this year, there's a video analytics Israeli startup called Usto. It used to be called Anyvision. They've been acquired. A company in the UK called Pupil, who do digital twins of building environments. They've had a majority investment from private equity. And then, for example, like Scale Microgrids, they've been acquired as well. So a lot of activity, and will be really interesting to see if that level is kept up through the year. In terms of then sort of a bit more about the detail, and I've put here, will there be kind of continued polarization of investment between the US and the Europe based on like different priorities? So I definitely think that we'll see continued focus on energy in Europe this year. And I don't know exactly that's going to be, of course, the same level, but I'm sure there will be it will be fairly consistent in terms of investment. In terms of deals, one thing, not just in Europe but across the board, I expect there to be significant deal activity in like workplace technology sector. The office market in general seems to be in kind of a state of flux, and there are mixed signals, I think, about the future, about what companies' different strategies are for hybrid work versus remote versus in office. We've seen in the US last week, presidential orders about return to work for all UK government employees, for example. And I think this kind of uncertainty is obviously not great for investors. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more sales of companies that perhaps need investment and can't raise it at the level that they want to in 2025. Third point I put down there is AI acquisitions and investment. Actually, we sort of estimated around 37% of those deals, those funding rounds from last year, AI played some sort of part in that. I think if you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said that the US is definitely going to double down on AI investment, and I'd expect smart building companies to really feel the tailwinds of that. However, what a difference a week makes. This Chinese LLM, DeepSeek, has kind of thrown a spanner in the works about the AI landscape, and I'm wondering if investors are going to be questioning their exposure to the investments they've already made, and if some of those companies are overvalued. So I think 2025 could be a mixed bag. I'd expect the total value of AI investments to probably remain the same, but the volume I think could potentially go up. There's still a lot of appetite for this technology, but there might be some rebalancing about what investors think those companies are actually worth. Beyond that, we can talk about, I mentioned a Chinese LLM. We can mention some of the research that we did also as part of this work. We profiled 30 Asian startups across different types of smart building technology. And just as a flavor of that, I'll pick one which is kind of relevant, right? Based on this company called Terminus. And, super interesting company. As you can see here, they've raised, they've been around a while. They've been around since 2015. And initially, they were very much focused on applying AI to IoT. So they have a lot of smart city platform. They're looking at the operations of buildings, of hospitals, campuses, even things like service robots. They received a lot of investment, not just support, say, for example, from companies like SenseTime, but also some state-affiliated investors as well. And they've actually gone through a bit of a pivot. So they raised a Series D last year. of 278 billion, and they're looking actually to really double down on producing large language models. So I think super interesting company. Just shows you that it's not just the US that's investing heavily. It's also other. There's lots of other examples of companies that are really going after this big opportunity in AI. So for those that are interested, those are some of the key findings from the research. Here is the report. Like if you want to scan that QR code, that'll take you to the report page. There's a few more details on there about what you can expect from it. Also, we don't just do specific reports. We also do subscriptions. So if you're interested, you can take an individual subscription. And this is for just like one person who is, an interested observer, wants to know more about companies in the space, what they're doing, what their financial performance is. You can go on the website and look for that. Also, as I mentioned earlier as well, we do an enterprise subscription. So that's for companies who want to share our information across the company. And want a really consistent view of smart building markets. Okay. Yeah, and then I just want to mention as well that we do advisory services. So you can see the kind of market intelligence we do. We also help with transaction support. So if you're looking to do, for example, screening of perhaps acquisition targets or investment opportunities, we can really help with that. And even AI development. We have our own chatbot, which can be used by enterprise subscribers. And you can license our data to provide information to any internal kind of AI tools that you have as well. You can contact us for that, for more details on that. Here's a screenshot of our chatbot. All right. Well, thanks a lot for listening. We've got maybe a few minutes now for questions. Let me see if I can bring up LinkedIn now. Could you sort the screen out? Thanks. All right. Yeah, so anyone who wants to put questions in, you can do that here. I'm just going to go in live. Hang on. Okay, question here from Dan. How does acquisition activity in 2024 compare to 2023? Yeah, good point. It's definitely pretty consistent. I think 2021, 22, again, similar to actually the investment activity, was high. It's come down slightly, but it's maintained a level around 50, 60 deals in those years. Okay. Anyone else have questions for me? If you do want more information, then go to the website. There's lots of detail there. I don't know if there's anything more anyone wants to ask. We can just hang around for a couple of minutes. Okay, question here from Tyson. Hi, how you doing? Do you see a lot of M&A in 2025? Yeah, I made some reference to it. I think that really depends where you're looking. So I mentioned about the levels of energy management investment, how Europe seems to be leading on that. So 50% of investments in Europe were in 50% of the total investments last year was energy management. Of that, over 60 was in Europe. But in terms of M&A, I think in terms of in volume, I'd expect there to be more activity in workplace technology for the reasons I gave. I think that there really are mixed signals in the office market, and I don't think there's that much confidence from investors. So could be an issue there with companies running out of cash, essentially, and maybe looking to exit. Question here from Derek. How do you see the hardware versus software M&A split trend? Don't have a lot of data on that. I think if you look at the slide I showed, that was this gives some breakdown of hardware versus software for energy management. So I can't really answer that one. I mean, if we're talking about acquisitions, I would expect sort of there to be more of an appetite for software, but that's just my personal opinion. Yaniv question. Thanks for these, guys. What is the main challenge for data acquisition in smart buildings? You mean, data acquisition. So you just mean getting data out of building technology? Well, there's lots of challenges, mainly around legacy systems, right? So not all, it's not easy to be able to get information out of legacy systems. Have to normalize it. There's no other than brick schema and real estate core now, right? But previously, there aren't sort of standardized data models for building data. Having to write every time you have to acquire data from a building, you're having to write new drivers or new normalize that data. It's a massive challenge. Rasmus, what is the general drivers on the workplace market versus EU legislative drivers on the ESG sustainability energy management market? Drivers on the workplace market versus drivers on ESG. I mean, in terms of, I think there's a lot more regulatory drivers around ESG sustainability energy management in Europe, for sure. We're seeing a lot of EU directives around that. I mentioned Repower EU, which is really about energy security. And I think, perfectly honest, that I see as a big driver in Europe for that stuff. Workplace market, not so sure about that at all. What the reasons or EMEA is leading in energy management related startups compared to US? As I just said there in reply to Rasmus, I think it's around the main things around energy security, which has been highlighted by the war in Ukraine. Definitely, there's a feeling like Germany, for example, that we're too reliant on energy from that region. And there's a need to address that balance, and energy management, energy efficiency, all that good stuff is part of that. And that, I think, is the main difference with the US, because this is what's driving, ultimately that's what's driving the regulation. In the US, there's not that driver as much. Of course, there's still climate change, but in terms of, they have a lot more energy security in the US than Europe. Rasmus, you've helped me answer Yanni's question, thanks. Proprietary solutions, immature solution APIs, non-standard data models, all issues around data acquisition. Okay, got time for one more question. Dr. Reza, thank you for this. Do you see a transition from ESG to energy management? Is the hype of ESG over? Well, I'm not an ESG expert. We are much more kind of focused on energy management. I don't think the hype of ESG is over, in the sense that, companies are still having to report on this. Like, it's still like massively important. Will there be less emphasis on it? I think in terms of the US, at least, you would have to anticipate that, given sort of the current or the new administration's view on sustainability, on ESG. But I don't think we're going to see like a transition from ESG to energy management. Energy management is part of ESG and will remain so. Tyson, one final question. How do you keep up to date with all the new startups, and what they do different, and what scale they have? Yeah, it's it's just like trying to having different sources, being able to parse that information, keep up to date with what they're doing. It's just sort of good old fashioned research legwork, to be honest. But also, part of that is picking up the phone, speaking to people as well, doing research. We're doing research constantly, so we do try and reach out to startups as part of that as well. Okay, there's a couple more comments. Sorry, we've run out of time, but really do appreciate you guys listening in today. And we'll be doing this again next month. We'll have a new subject for you. If you subscribe to us on LinkedIn, then you'll get a notification about what that will be. And in the meantime, check out the website. Thanks very much.